Okay, looks like we have a number of people filing in. We'll just give it another minute or so for everyone to join before we go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can just go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join this panel discussion and webinar. My name is Hamza Adam. I will be the facilitator for our session today. And I'll go ahead and start with the introductions. So myself, my name is Hamza Adam. I'm with a firm called H-Factor Solutions, and I bring over 15 years of experience in business development, marketing, training, and mentoring to the legal field. I'm also a certified corporate coach, and I've worked with a number of law firms, large and small, primarily in the GTA. And I'll be speaking about the wider impacts of COVID on law firms and the impact
Well, Hamza, sorry I cannot hear you anymore. Maybe it's my problem. Maybe are you muted?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
I
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
Okay, so sorry about that. Did I cut off when I was introducing Miguel?
Yes, I did not hear the introduction.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. So I'll go ahead and restart the introduction. So I started off with myself. So my name is Hamza Adam. I am the managing director of a firm called H-Factor Solutions. What we do is we help law firms in the area of marketing and business development. Provide a lot of training and mentoring as well, and I'm a certified corporate coach. I'll be working, I've worked with law firms large and small, primarily in the GTA, and we're seeing a number of them are struggling tremendously with the uncertainty going forward. So we'll be speaking to what we're seeing and some of the trends and what might be some opportunities as a result of this situation. In addition, we have Miguel Ribeiro, who is the founder and CEO of VBS IT Services, an award-winning managed IT service provider in Toronto. He's been helping law firms since 2007 operate with at peak performance and improve productivity and reliability with 99% uptime, which is great. We need that. And he has over 10 experience leading his own team and working from home. So he'll be sharing some of his best practices and how to use technology and how to get set up properly to run your practice at peak performance. In addition, we have Mo Robris, who is the VP of Governance and Risk Management at KB Information Security. And he'll be talking about essentially IT management and security, data protection, and the cybersecurity threats that we see in the legal space. He brings over 10 years of experience in risk management and security controls. and he is also founder of the Cloud Security Alliance, a not-for-profit organization focused on cloud cybersecurity. And he works both here in Canada and in the GTA as well as in the EU, providing his skills to companies in need of data protection, mainly on small and medium law firms in the GTA region. So thank you, Miguel and Mauro, for joining me here. I'll kick off the panel discussion with really a question on what really are we seeing as the trends and impacts on the industry, and how is COVID impacting that? And before we even get into that, let's answer the question, why are we here, right? Why are we all kind of on this call today? And I think it's because we all recognize it's a very different world today. Obviously, things have been changing, but much, much more so because of the COVID-19 situation that we're all having to react to. And I like to bring up this quote from Darwin, which is often construed as the survival of the fittest, but that's not exactly what he said. If you look carefully at what Darwin actually said, it's really, he's talking about it's the species that adapt and adjust to a changing environment that are the ones that actually are best able to survive. And now we really are talking about how do we survive in a hugely, tremendously changing environment. And that's why we're all here, is trying to get some answers to how can we adapt to this situation. So, when I look at the industry trends, what I see is that, a lot of individual lawyers and their practices and law firms kind of represent this little circle at the bottom, right? And this circle is looking to want to expand. You obviously want to grow the number of clients that you serve. You want to grow your practices. But the challenge is that while you're trying to grow outwards, there are a number of forces that are pushing you inwards, right, and to constrain that growth. And these are things like legal process outsourcers, the rise of legal tech, the rise of AI and machine learning, neural business models, and then number of buyers has been shrinking. And then what Richard Susskind, who's written some pretty interesting books around the legal field and the trends going on, which he calls the more for less expectation, as well as a lot of competition. So I'll just pick on a couple of these because we don't have a lot of time to go through every single one of these. But what we're seeing is, and particularly due to COVID-19, is you're going to see an acceleration of a lot of these different forces, where you're going to have the disintermediation of the way law firms practice, the way certain practices are managed and certain things are done. There's going to be a lot of disintermediation there. And on top of that, what you're going to see is the number of buyers is just going to be tremendously shrinking, because there are going to be a lot of clients, a lot of people that you serve and businesses that you serve or could serve that will actually go out of business as a result of COVID-19, unfortunately. And in fact, a lot of law firms themselves will be going out of business, and that is a trend that we're going to see going forward, because not every law firm is well positioned to be able to deal with the uncertainties that COVID-19 is bringing and to pivot and adjust to that. And on top of that, what you're going to see is more demanding buyers. You're going to see what's called the more for less expectation, which you've seen a lot of pressure in terms of the billing model for law firms, a lot of pushback in terms of the hourly billing model, push towards AFAs or alternative fee agreements. You're going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see clients basically asking for much lower rates. They're going to be asking for lower fixed fees. They're going to be asking for value-based billing. So you're going to see a lot of pressure there. And as a result of, and in contribution to all of these forces, what you're going to see is really the fact of the matter is the pie is actually shrinking, and that's going to drive even more intense competition between the law firms that are out there, because they're going to essentially be fighting for a smaller piece of the pie. So it's a very, very challenging situation. These forces were already in play pre-COVID, but what COVID has done is it's accelerating accelerating these impacts. And so it's going to be very, very difficult going forward. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's very unclear what the new normal is going to be. The reality is there is going to be a new normal. The question is, what is that new normal going to look like? But we do have some indications. If you think about what would this mean for individual lawyers and their practices, well, it depends on the type of practice that you have, right? Some practices are going to be hugely negatively impacted. What kind of practices? Well, like real estate and commercial real estate practices that focus on those areas are going to struggle going forward, because we hear constantly of, now that a lot of businesses are recognizing that it is possible to work from home, they're starting to recognize that maybe they don't need that much space anymore. So commercial real estate is going to be an area to look at to see some really significant impacts. Also, real estate, people can't get out, can't do showings, you can't, are just trying to avoid meeting other people right now due to the need for social distancing. So that is going to be having an impact. What about after things kind of open up? Will people be still willing to go into a stranger's house and look at it? Is another question, right? So these are all challenges out there that we see, but there are going to be other individual types of practices that could see huge gains from the results that we've seen due to COVID, like employment law, all the changes that the federal government has been bringing through. What is that impact going to be in terms of for the employer as well as the employees? There's going to need to be a lot of clarity there and support there. Tax law, again, because of the changes. Also, wills and estates, I think, is going to be another area that's going to see a bit of a boost, because people are starting to recognize realize their mortality, and particularly in the 40 to 60 plus age group, which is where COVID tends to have more of a mortality impact. People are starting to recognize that maybe they should get their wills and estates aspects of their lives in order. So we're seeing that. We're seeing all of that. But I don't want this to be all about doom and gloom. I think there is huge potential for growth despite COVID. But even before we talk about growth, what you want to be thinking about is, how do we best serve our clients in the current situation? Because you really want to stop the bleeding. I know for a lot of practices, they're having clients are saying, let's push back on any work we need to do right now. Let's see when things open up. And the reality is that you want to stop the bleeding. You don't want to be losing clients in this situation. And so the best thing that you can do right now is really empathize with them, build on the human connection, right? The social distancing isn't in effect, but we do have tools right now, and my colleagues are going to be talking about some of the tools that we could be using and how to use them safely. But make that human connection, right? Don't be distant. I know lawyers typically have a bit of a reputation for being a bit distant, and that's a common complaint that we hear from clients of lawyers, is that they don't hear often enough from their lawyers. And this would be a really good time to reach out and kind of really empathize, because a lot of the uncertainty you're feeling as a legal practitioner, a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals are feeling those same kind of uncertainties. A lot of people are very concerned about their jobs. They may not have jobs to go back to after all is said and done. So now is really a good time to really reach out and kind of empathize, whether you call them on the phone or arrange some kind of video meeting or something of that nature. And I would challenge everyone to really reach out to your previous and existing clients and really just show them you care. This would be the best time to do something like that, is just reach out and just show them you care. And while in real estate they talk about the most important factor being location, I think in terms of professional services and the kind of work that you do, the best thing you can be thinking about is communication. It is much better in a situation like this to over-communicate than to under-communicate, all right? So that's about, maintaining the level field or at least trying not to lose the business and clients that you have right now. Well, what about growing? Is growth even possible amidst this COVID situation? And I think it is. So here are a few things that you would need to do to really evaluate whether it's possible for you, right? Is, first of all, I would suggest that you perform what I call a visioning exercise, which is really an exercise where you think about what are the what are the potential impacts that COVID could have on my customer base or client base, and what do I see going forward, right? We mentioned there are going to be certain areas like commercial real estate that could be really struggling going forward. Where are other opportunities where you can apply yourself and deliver value? This would be a good exercise to do at a business level, really thinking about industrial trends, like looking at the political landscape, the environmental landscape, and looking at really where are the opportunities. And this is something best done with other individuals. You can do it yourself, but I would highly recommend you get other individuals involved who do have a bit of a business background and can help you kind of sort through the noise and figure out what is the potential here. And then you want to focus on what are the most viable niches moving forward. Figure out how you're going to differentiate, like even in the areas where that are going to see a lot of really demand. It doesn't necessarily mean all that demand is going to come to you. You have to be able to differentiate yourself, because there are other lawyers who are kind of in essentially the same practice area. What is that makes you different and better than the others that are out there in terms of what value can you provide? So really focus on the outcomes and the value. And then you want to build and execute a strategy to perform effective marketing and business development and activities using online means. Again, the way it was done before with all the networking and getting together with clients and so on and asking for referrals, that may never return to the extent that it was done before. It just may not be an option going forward. So now we need to think about how do we use online means to do some of these same things. We might have to do things even a bit differently, just because marketing and doing business development online is actually a bit of a different process than doing it in person. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to share the value that we know, right? And with that, we need to look at new tools, new ways of doing things. And on that front, I would actually like to have Miguel, if you could kind of speak to the aspects of business continuity and remote working best practices, because that's kind of where people are at right now. They're recognizing their need to focus a little bit more on the technology they use and how they use it. So what, question for you, Miguel, is what is it that you feel successful organizations have in common, and how are they kind of responding well to this situation?
Good question, Hamza. So I think it comes back to a point you brought up earlier, where you talked about being able to adapt, and that's key. So in what I mean by that is that you need to be agile in how you design your infrastructure, and so that you can adjust for growth or adjust for when things decline. And also be able to have the right tools in place so that you can easily adapt to working from a home environment, and that's key. So cloud technologies offer that capability, where essentially you're using a browser to operate all of your software that you run your organization on, all your collaboration tools that you use to communicate with everyone on your team. Everything is either browser-based or application-based that communicates with the cloud. So that makes organizations very agile, very easy to adapt to situations. We are talking about COVID here in this particular scenario, but there's also bad weather that we have to deal with in Canada. There are also power outages that occur all the time. So, having a flexible infrastructure that allows you to adapt to anything that is disruptive, I think that's key.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. And in terms of working remotely, I see you have a nice, really interesting slide here. So can you tell us a little bit more about what your thoughts are on remote working and how law firms in particular should be adapting to that?
Yes, absolutely. So, remote working does require a particular setup. These pictures that you're seeing here, a lot of people love the idea of being able to work from the beach or from their poolside, And that's great if you're doing light work and checking email or whatnot, but actual work requires a proper environment. And if you want to flip the slide to the next one, please.
Yeah.
So here's a shot of my actual work environment. I have a stand-up desk. I have an external monitor, external keyboard. Excuse me. This is my home office environment. So just wanted to show this and help people understand what's important in setting up a proper work environment. It has to be, you have to eliminate distractions. So preferably, in the part of your house where is, quieter and family or pets are not going to be distraction. Kitchen is not the ideal area to be working from home, but unfortunately, some people may only have that option. A desk needs to be well arranged with the right type of equipment. You can see I've got a laptop, so I can take it anywhere. Again, the external monitor and mouse really help in terms of productivity. Things like, sound cancellation headsets, so that when you're on the phone, it cancels out some of the sound in the background. These are really important little things that make a difference in how productive you are. Even a chair, for instance, having a kitchen table chair that doesn't swivel. They're not typically that comfortable. Office chairs are designed for being more comfortable. Or ultimately, you want to have a stand-up desk like I have. I'm currently standing up right now. It gives you a lot more energy when you're speaking to people. I can have a cordless headset and pace around, so just a lot more energy when you're actually talking to people, and you don't feel so bogged down. So I think.
Yeah, and I also hear that standing up is actually better for your health than sitting down all day. So I would imagine that's also an important thing to keep in mind too.
Absolutely, exactly. It's you're going to feel not only more energy, but hopefully you're going to live longer as well, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more I could talk about with regards to what kind of applications to use, but that's for another session. We won't have enough time to get into it. But if you want to go to the next slide.
Yeah. And so as we go into some of your material here, Miguel, what would you say is the biggest mistake that you see organizations make when it comes to setting themselves up for working remotely and their IT setups?
Biggest mistake is lack of planning. So, which has happened to a lot of folks. They weren't prepared for this. So, what we're seeing is that everyone's setting up a remote access to a computer that's in their office using either a VPN or some kind of other remote application. And all these things can work, but they just don't work as well as it should. For people to be able to adapt to a home environment and to be productive. And so, and I think that's a real challenge right now, where people are feeling a little isolated, not very productive, because they don't have the proper infrastructure to be able to be collaborative and to be able to do their day-to-day activities. So they're kind of struggling through that process.
Right. Yeah, so this was the slide that you were talking about. So what are some of your thoughts around being collaborative and how we can leverage technology to stay connected and be collaborative? What are some thoughts around that from an IT perspective?
Well, first of all, let me just explain that VBS has been working remotely for more than 10 years now. Years ago, when we decided to move to make the shift, we realized that not only are we going to save in terms of real estate costs and various other costs related to having an office, but we're also going to save time and money on travel. So the fact that we didn't have to travel into an office and travel back to home, that was a huge savings. And just that alone equated to an extra 10 hours of productivity per week per person. So that's a huge improvement, right? And a lot of folks don't take that into consideration. And with our team, they actually start earlier, on average half an hour earlier, and stay on average half an hour later. So not only are we getting the extra productivity because of they're not traveling, but we're getting extra productivity because they typically will stay later, and they feel comfortable doing that because they're working from their home environment. It's easy for them to continue working throughout the after hours, so to speak. But what we're seeing in terms of what's critical for a good environment to allow people to be productive and collaborate is, of course, the tools. The tools are really important. You have to have some kind of way to interact with each other, either through video, through instant messaging, or through a phone. And this is one of the biggest, I guess, challenges for a lot of organizations that had to rush through the process to work from home. Sure, they have access to email, they might have access to their applications to run their business, but they don't have an easy way to collaborate. So one of the things that I can recommend is anybody that is on Microsoft Office 365, look at Microsoft Teams as your collaboration tool. It's a fantastic tool that allows you to do video conversations on a mass scale throughout your entire team, as well as instant messaging and even just phone calls through the application, sharing documents, sharing information, and even having an intranet that you can post all the updates of your organization. So that's one way to go. If you're on Google Suite, there's also the Google meeting application that does some of the similar capabilities. But by far, Microsoft Teams is definitely the most popular. Now, in order to be effective in having a proper culture of adapting to this new culture, is that you have to design that culture and help people adapt to that culture, and that's another key point. It does take some training, but you have to start with first having the tools and then developing that culture, and that culture will also be developed by having regular meetings. So just to give you an idea, we have stand-up meetings. What stand-up meetings means is that they're short meetings where we talk about one challenge or one issue or one situation, and we discuss it as a group, and we come up with a solution for that particular situation. So stand-up meetings are a great way to maintain social with your staff. Of course, your normal weekly meetings that you would normally have, make sure that you do them using, again, an online application. I recommend video to be part of that because video is engaging, keeps people interested in the particular meeting that you're having. And finally, the collaboration aspect of working on documents, I think that's also really important, that you have some kind of a cloud-based document management system so that you can collaborate on documents, make changes together on documents, discuss those documents, and there's a lot of different tools out there that help you with that sort of thing. And then the final point to it as well, excuse me, because people rushed through the process to adapt to working from home, they forgot one really key important point, and that is cybersecurity. Yeah. So, it's great to be able to set up remote access, but how are you how you're setting it up could be causing some vulnerabilities in your data and some vulnerabilities in your infrastructure. So we don't have time to get into a lot of the issues related around cybersecurity. Mauro is going to elaborate more on that. And, and I think, you know, again, these are some of the things that you need to consider to adapt to a home work from home environment.
Yeah, those are some really excellent points, and yeah, I could see that, you know, with a lot of these tools and the capabilities they bring. The other challenge is obviously being able to stay secure, and obviously for lawyers, the big consideration is they are kind of obligated to maintain the privacy and confidentiality of the information that they retain from their clients and prospective clients. So that is really a good segue to get Mauro's take on that. So Mauro, if I could ask you, you know, given everyone's had to kind of make this shift, as Miguel mentioned, everyone's had to make this shift, you know, very, very rapidly, and for most organizations on very short notice. So what does that mean for us? Like, what does that mean for law firms in particular? Because does that mean that they're now less safe, and are we all less safe and less secure when we're working from home? What does it mean, and how should we be thinking about that, Mauro?
Yeah, so, well, thank you for the question. In order to give you an answer, please let me start from this slide, if you can show it. As you probably understand, I'm Italian, and lasagna very important for Italians. So I put this picture.
Hungry, Mauro.
Yeah, it's almost time. Actually, it's time, lunchtime. But I put this slide because lasagna has something in common with cybersecurity. They have in common layers. In security, as in lasagna, the more layers, the better. So starting from that, my point is that what I see is changing with this new reality is that cyber world follows in parallel the physical world. So as the attack surface has changed in the physical world because of this new COVID virus, the attack surface is changing at the same level in the cyber world. And when I say attack surface, I'm talking about everything. People, locations, as Miguel clearly explained, and workstations. For example, if you consider the workstations, they are generally at the office, now are at home. And if you consider the level of protection of your firm's network infrastructure, I'm sure that your firm uses some sort of intrusion detection systems, some intrusion prevention systems, layers anyway. So all these devices and applications are layers of security. And now the question is, do you have the same level of protection at home, the same number of layers? Because I'm honest with you, I don't have at home all those layers of protection. The most layers you have, the harder is for bad guys to gain access to your computer, to your data, to your client's data stored on your computer. So I believe there is a real risk around, especially for lawyers in this moment, because lawyers still have the same duties of confidentiality, but are now forced to rely on technology more, and technology is subject to breaches. In fact, lawyers are responsible for the privacy of the information of their clients, and now they are exposing that information because they are using home networks, the Wi-Fi networks with less layers. So what I'm saying is that when working from home, there are some specific threats because you don't have all those layers of protection you have at your office. For example, the configuration of your router, same router that you or your kids use to play games online, which brings me to another threat. You know, the concern regarding the spread of this COVID virus is flattening the curve. And in this parallel analogy, we try to do the same in cybersecurity, because the behavior of a cyber virus is very similar to a human virus. Spread, diffusion, harm, the period of incubation, and the systems, human bodies on one side, electronic devices on the other, are infected if they are not treated well. And so how can we, security guys, can put down the curve of a software virus with user awareness, with secure access, VPN, which means solutions harder to exploit, or with segmentation. Think at segmentation in the virtual world as the analogy of social distancing in the physical world. Segmentation helps, especially in a world of devices of all sorts, to prevent spread of cyber virus. For example, if you are looking at this webinar and on the same device you watch Netflix, this is an example of not keeping a social distancing in a virtual world. This is an example of segmentation. Separate the web services on different channels or on different platforms or systems, devices. Or again, for example, if you share the same home network with your internet-connected TV, the so-called smart TV, well, you should ask yourself if that TV is really smart. Okay, so that's my point. An attacker is facilitated in gaining access when you use your home network rather than your office. And I hope I answered your question, Hamza.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. So the point is that I really like the whole idea of the social distancing and how that applies from a technology perspective, particularly in trying to keep ourselves secure, and the focus on perhaps using separate devices for different things that we want to do, and not doing the typical things we would do at home on our work devices or vice versa. So, and I know you've done, you and your firm, KB, has done a bunch of research around the threats facing law firms. And can you share with us, like, what is the findings? What are the key threats that you're finding that could apply to law firms, and particularly what the impact of COVID is on those kinds of threats? Can you share a little bit about that from your research?
Yeah, of course. Actually, this is a great question. It really is, because we disclosed our research at the beginning of this year, before the spread of the COVID virus. So now, even if the results are still consistent, we have to adapt the content to this new reality. And this new reality is saying that some threats are even more effective now than before. Well, probably now than ever. And I'm especially talking about phishing, which is for sure the first. Phishing email is one of the most efficient form of attack since forever. A compromised email system can seriously damage business interest and reputation. And still nowadays, mail phishing is the most commonly used channel for targeted attacks. We've seen phishing activity in March increase much more than in January and in February, and I'm saying 350% more.
Wow.
But why is phishing so efficient after 25 years? Because attackers take advantage of our human nature, our curiosity, our passion. So, for example, they ask for donation to help COVID research. They stimulate our sensibility, which is higher in this moment. Attackers see an opportunity and are studying how to take advantage now, exploiting our vulnerabilities as a human being. And they take advantage through emails able to steal information. To get caught is very simple. You click on a link on a message received from what you think is one of your contacts, a known email address. At that time, what you don't know is that the address is only apparently true, which well actually is a fake. Underneath that email address, there is an unknown hidden sender who is taking advantage of some features of email programs like Outlook or some email programs you currently use. The result is potentially a lot of troubles. The worst case scenario, ransomware. All of your data will be encrypted and you must pay a ransom. I mean, pay real money to get the recovery key to decrypt and have your data available back in a clear format, as happened 2 weeks ago at a law firm in Manitoba. The second form of attack, the second threat, is social engineering. Social engineering is the art of manipulating people so they give up confidential information. And I presume all the information managed by a lawyer is confidential when not even highly confidential. Criminals are usually trying to trick people into revealing passwords, bank information, or access to computers so they can install malicious software, giving them complete control over the computer where you store your data and your customers' data. And again, of reported incidents, the security breaches started through social engineering are 95%. Hackers, for example, may call and pretend to be an IT guy from your staff, having remote access updates to distribute, and thus tricking you into giving them access. And once they have access to one of your systems, they in, and they assure you they easily gain access to everything. An email, text, or phone call requesting personal or sensitive information is often a sign of a scam. So to summarize, phishing combined with social engineering attacks plus the use of personal devices, because personal devices are unlikely to have the same level of security as a corporate device. These devices are often reduce company control over corporate data, over your customers' data. Customers' data is therefore more exposed to attacks. When you download unsecure personal applications or connect to your home Wi-Fi network, security holes are potentially opened. For example, this comes from video call systems. That's part of the enlarged attack surface that I mentioned before. We saw what happened 3 weeks ago with a particular platform, Zoom. You probably heard about the so-called Zoom bombing.
Yes, that was big in the news for sure. Go ahead,
yeah. Zoom was the most used video conf platform. And so attackers realized that there were more vulnerabilities to exploit. In the world of cybercrime, more traffic means more money. And attackers go where the money is. That's simple. So with these platforms comes a lot of links, and links are perfect for a social engineering attack. So do not share information if not necessary, because sharing means sending your credentials online, username and password, even in a so-called encrypted format, a hash, but passwords are an attraction for hackers. It's like honey to a bear. I don't know why. As I told you, I prefer lasagna to honey, but attackers, they enjoy it. They love to start to decode those encrypted password, and it's just a matter of time. They have the tools to do it, but at the end it will be successful, and that's a problem for your data. So the recommendation is change passwords regularly. So the combination of all these factors is the reason why for now that curve is not flattening, because we see many people fall for phishing scams, clicking on malicious link on websites, download programs or software that turns out to contain malware. And these are the top cyber threats we face now.
And given these threats, I guess really the next question is, what can a non-technical person do? Like most lawyers, or as I've experienced, are typically very non-technical. So what can a non-technical person do to protect at least themselves and their environment from being targeted by these cyber hackers and cyber attackers?
Yeah, well, we've spoken about threats since now, so move on. Let's spend the last few minutes speaking about data protection. So back to the layers. The focus on prevention may be the answer to your question, because you know security can be broken down into 3 main elements: prevention, detection, and remediation. Again, the same if you think the analogy with the physical world. Prevention is better than cure, as doctors say. The same happens in cybersecurity. We must rely on prevention, also because detection and remediation are even more challenging now in the remote working context. And prevention means awareness. With this awareness in mind, we've seen most law firms have deployed work from home policies, and that's a smart response to reduce the risk of exposure to threats. So here in this slide, we can see some actions, simple actions you can take to protect yourself, your customers' data, your law firm. Be paranoid, which means, can anyone see your screen? Can anyone hear your conversation? Ask yourself those questions. Be careful with any email, especially email referencing the coronavirus. Messages may contain malicious code. Do not click, do not help links if you're not sure. If you're not sure, ask. Use strong password practices. Passphrases are more effective than password. Stay informed and updated through official channels. That's important. If not already done, ask your staff to provide official updates at least weekly. Try to not mix work and leisure activities on the same device. Remember segmentation. Keep your family off your computer. I mean, consider the risk of an accidental data deletion or modification. Consider longer timer to repair due to lockdown, longer time to buy and receive and configure a new device. And remember what Miguel told you, keep your office clean, your home office clean. I add, keep your home office secure. The best way is follow your company's security policies. If you don't have, consider to introduce policies. Ask to have policies. You act in a safe way working remotely, while someone else should take care of your firm to check the security with a cybersecurity assessment as a support to your IT team to help identify threats and vulnerabilities to be fixed. Because prevention means better data protection, which is strictly connected to reputation. What if a data breach occurs? You know, if you get breached, you must report it. And consider what happens to your reputation in a case like that. You see what happened 2 weeks ago at a law firm in Manitoba. That's the reality out there. Data protection means data loss prevention, means encryption, means effective actions for your law firm. In fact, you need to have a regular assessment at your firm, a proper assessment done, especially after this situation. It doesn't have to be us. It comes as an advice from me. For your security, I highly recommend someone to take a look for you. So, well, basically, these are my advices, and of course, I'm happy to go into more detail anytime if you need. I know there's last 10 minutes to go, so I think I'm done for now.
I think that's great, Mauro. This is really helpful, and particularly your tips. And just to mention to our audience, we will be providing some goodies, which will include a copy of the slides as well as a few other guides and tip sheets and tool sheets to help you think about your remote working and being safe while remote working. But Mauro, I really like your point. Some of the points you've made here, including like making updates. When you're talking about, when you say making updates, that is making software updates for the different softwares that we would be operating on our computers. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Because I know, like, typically you'll find a lot of Windows updates and so on. So it's probably not a good idea to postpone those updates, is it?
Update. That's the rule. Even devices that you do not use daily, keep them updated.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then getting your, as I understand it, most IT teams for law firms are typically focused on the day-to-day, just keeping things running. That's where I think your suggestion of getting an outside view is a good one by any firm that really focuses on cybersecurity, because we are obviously seeing a lot of reports on law firms being targeted because law firms are seen to have obviously have a lot of money, and that's why you're seeing a lot of ransomware attacks, as in this example here that Mauro brought up. So obviously getting an outside view of someone who focuses purely on cybersecurity obviously would make a ton of sense. So that's great. I think these are really some really great suggestions, and I think very, very valuable for us. So we have a few minutes left. I'd like to open it up for the audience. So the audience, if you'd like to, if you have any questions, this would be a good time to ask your questions. The way to do it in GoToWebinar here is on your panel, on your GoToWebinar panel, there is a question section. And if you have any questions, you can type in your question there. and we will be happy to take questions for the audience here in the last few minutes before we do wrap up. As we're getting some questions, there is a question we have here for you, Mauro. So what does a typical phishing attack look like? I think you might even have an example of that for us. Can you walk us through what a phishing attack might look like?
Let's say that's a tough question because phishing emails are apparently very similar to regular emails. Okay, so that's the reason of their success. You should consider the elements of which an email is made: sender, receiver, subject, body, eventually a link, some attachments. Okay, so you should check all these elements.
So in this example here, this looks like an email that says safety coronavirus awareness. Apparently looks like it's supposed to be coming from the WHO. Is that so how can we tell this is a phishing email?
Yeah, apparently, because first of all, you should check the body, that the body contains a message to you, like dear John, blah, blah, or is some more generic, like dear customer. Does the body contain only text or some external or a link to external materials, or such a web page, like in this case, we'll say register here. Or in this case, when there is a link to register, sometimes it means they are asking for sensitive information. Okay, so you need to put down at least your email address, your first, last name, maybe your phone number. Okay, so you just need to ask yourself, who is the sender? Is the sender one of my contacts? When you receive an email, you should usually see it in the format of first name, second name, but you need to go deeper, look what email address is hidden underneath those first and last names. If you pass over with the mouse, you can see eventually the mail address of the sender. Is that a generic email address, familiar address? Is one of your contacts? Is that just a never seen before sender? Okay, these are some questions you need to ask yourself. And the subject, is that ambiguous, unclear? Is that a topic you are already discussing with someone? Maybe it's related to your activity in some way. And again, if there is a link, what you see is what the attacker wants to show you, a fake. You see a link to what seems a regular website, something like, in this case, I can see if the screen is smaller, but something that is familiar. It could be thestar.com/COVID, something like that. But actually, underneath that string, the true link is directed to another website, as you show here. More suspicious, something unfamiliar, something you recognize as unusual, a string uncommon, a lot of characters with no sense. Okay, these are the questions you need to ask yourself. The check you need to do before clicking that link, before opening. Eventually, you cut and paste that link on your browser, and that shows you the real destination, which is uncommon, unfamiliar.
Yeah,
fake.
That's a very good tip, Mauro, because most people would, like in this example here, it looks like it's coming from the CDC, and it looks like it's a legitimate website, and somebody would be very prone to click on it and go wherever it takes you. And this, unfortunately, could be something that could actually even download some ransomware onto your computer and lock you out, and now cause all kinds of trouble for you in trying to get access to your own information, client information. That would be a pretty unfortunate incident to have happen just because you clicked on something that looked legitimate. So what you're suggesting is that you actually copy the link and then paste it in the browser, but obviously you don't press enter, and you can see that it is actually not a legitimate link. It's actually directing you to some unknown website, which could be used for malicious purposes. Is that right, Mauro?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. For sure, it's unfamiliar. It's something that you, at first sight, understand, realize that it's different from the link you saw on the message. First of all, so this is suspicious, and this is an uncommon web address.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And again, if there's any other questions, feel free to type them into the question box there. We do have a few minutes left. Happy to take any additional questions. There is a question for you here, Miguel. Mauro talked about the use of personal computers and having that separation between personal computers and company-owned computers. In your experience, are you finding that that tends to be an issue? Are you finding a lot of people tending to use the same laptop or desktop for both work and home purposes, or do you provision them for work purposes, a separate computer? Like, how do you see that typically working with the clients that you have, Miguel?
Well, we always advise our clients to have a company-owned device. And the reason for that is that you have total control of that device. Whereas if it's a personal device that belongs to your employee, you don't have complete control. And I'm sure there's some legal challenges there as well. So definitely, use a computer owned by the organization, and then monitor that device. We talked a little bit earlier about making sure that updates are always installed. Well, we monitor devices 24/7, and part of our service is to automatically update those devices with the latest patches for Windows and other software that resides on that device. So that's one thing. In addition, making sure that the end user understands that they need to use that device strictly for work. No personal software should be installed on it. And Mauro mentioned earlier about Netflix. Netflix is a safe application, and that's not such a big issue, but it's the concept of mixing, the business with the personal use. You should definitely eliminate that. So Netflix should not be installed on it unless you want to offer that individual that opportunity. But other software, like free software, shouldn't be installed on a device. It can be a security issue, and also any other type of personal software that that is not for related to your day-to-day activities, day-to-day job. I think it's really important to make sure that you keep a business device strictly for business, and also give the user an understanding, or at least education, on the fact that they can call their IT department when they have questions relating to their device, if they should or should not install software, or even things like what Mauro spoke about. As I was listening to Mauro and explaining about these links, well, let's face it, a lot of end users do not understand what to look for in a phishing email. And so if they are in doubt, they should be able to call their IT department and ask them, is this a safe email for me to open? What should I be looking at? In other words, even with a remote work from home type of environment, users need to have access to their IT department to help them with things, and more so now than ever, because they're adapting to this new way of doing business.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay, so we're just about at the top of the hour there. I would like to mention that for everyone who has attended, thank you all for attending. We've had some really good attendance at this particular event, so the information has been truly valuable. We will be sending out a recording for everyone who has attended. We'll be sending out a copy of the slides as well. In addition, KB has been kind enough to offer to provide some tools that we will be sharing as well to those of you who have attended. So there is a video conferencing safety tips for attendees, as well as top 5 tips to securely working from home. And then VBS, I believe you're providing guidelines and tips for employees working remotely, and as well as a tip sheet around guidelines and tips for transitioning IT to a remote work from home environment. So thank you both for providing those to help our lawyers out there who are really battling very, very uncertain times and certainly need as much help as they can get to really be able to be productive and safe in these very, very challenging times. Is there anything else either of you would like to add before we close it off here today?
Yes, actually, I would like to add something. Mauro talked a little bit about passwords, and I can tell you that that is one of the biggest challenges a lot of people have because they want to create a password that they are going to remember. So it must be easy. And when it's too easy, of course, it's not secure. Just wanted to give the audience a real simple tip. And, you know, Mauro mentioned password phrases or passphrases as referred to. So let's say, for example, let's talk about Mauro and his password. You know, he loves lasagna, so it could be, I love lasagna.
That's right, exclamation mark.
There you go, 365 days a week. So I love lasagna, 365, and then an ampersand sign or a dollar sign, and that's a good password. That's a password that you will remember. And of course, you want to use uppercase and lowercase numbers and signs. So that's a passphrase, and you know, it's really simple. Pick something that you love. I love shopping, dollar sign, you know, and whatever number you want to assign to it. So that's a real quick tip for coming up with a password that really works.
Excellent, great tip, great tip. And Mauro, I believe you're also offering a free health check to anyone who's interested in the next couple of weeks. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know you both are open for any additional questions after the event as well, but is there anything else you would like to add, Mauro, at this point?
Just a last consideration, since we are now in a moment of fear, and sometimes when we are in a moment like this, we forget to ask for help. So as Miguel was saying, we are surrounded by people who are willing and able to help. All we have to do is ask. So the people on your teams, on my team, are an amazing and creative resource. All we have to do is ask, and for sure we have some help. So don't be shy and ask.
Okay, excellent. So we will be providing all the panelists' contact information. If you do have any other questions, or you do want to take either Mauro or Miguel up on their offers to do essentially a free health check for you to see that you are safe and secure and be able to be productive in this situation. Thank you both for offering that to our audience. I really appreciate that. And thank you everyone for being with us today. I hope you got a lot of value from this session. Again, we will be sending out the goodies after the webinar. And we wish you all the best of health and safety. So take care, stay safe. And thank you once again for joining us. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Okay.
Goodbye.